Ike for president, Ike for president, Ike for president, Ike for president. You like Ike, I like Ike, everybody likes Ike for president. Hang out the banner, beat the drum, we'll take Ike to Washington.
Hello, America. This is former President Dwight D. Eisenhower talking to you about lobbying. While representative democracy is generally a positive and healthy thing for a government and society at large to have, it does unfortunately have problems that can be associated with it. Among the most worrying is that our representatives will stop doing things for their constituents and start doing things for themselves. This, however, is already happening, and it's happening because of a process called lobbying. Lobbying is the practice where corporations and other interest groups give things like money to elected representatives so that their policies are reflective of the interests of that interest group, not necessarily the interests of regular Joe Schmoes like you and me. Since the government is supposed to work for the aforementioned Joe Schmoes, and those even less fortunate, it is a repugnant practice which strongly incentivizes our representatives to work for those who already have everything they need against the needs of the needy. But what does this practice look like? Now, there are 3 types of lobbying: direct lobbying, grassroots lobbying, and coalition lobbying. Direct lobbying and coalition lobbying are probably what you think of when people talk about lobbying, and they're slight variations of what I defined earlier. So I'm just going to talk about them and not grassroots lobbying, which is a lot more wishy-washy in general. There's the definition. Pause the video. Well, I hear you saying, that sucks. But what exactly are the effects of all this lobbying stuff? Well, here are a couple examples. First of all, Israel. Yeah, I know. Everybody hates Israel, except for like 2 people. But if everybody hates Israel, why are we still sending money to Israel? Well, it's because of lobbying. AIPAC is a lobby organization which has granted over
$70 million
to various members of the government, like Congress and the president and stuff. You know, isn't it crazy that over 80% of Congress is in favor of a war which only
32%
of citizens support? Another place you can see the effects of lobbying is in the federal minimum wage. Now, a lot of conservatives are going to tell you that raising the minimum wage would cause a bunch of inflation and joblessness, and that's not really correct. Studies generally indicate that more good things would come out of it, such as increased consumer spending, and also, families can afford to eat. Corporations lobbying through organizations such as the National Restaurant Association, not to be confused with the National Rifle Association, which is an entirely different lobbying corporization. Yeah, the National Rifle Association is an entirely different lobbying organization. How about that word? Anyways, corporations lobbying through stuff like the National Restaurant Association leads to things like a minimum wage of $7.25 per hour. Per hour? $7.25 per hour, which has stayed the same for the last 16 years despite all this inflation going on. These are only 2 notable examples of lobbying. There's like 100 trillion other issues that are primarily decided via lobbying. Now I hear your tears. You're crying. You're clawing for answers, some hope, asking, "But Ike, what can we possibly do to put an end to this horrid beast destroying our representative democracy?" Well, I'll tell you, stupid. Contact your representative. Here on screen is a QR code for a website that has all the information to find out who your representative is, and you can even click underneath their name, even has their website, which also has their phone number and their email. And you can do the same thing with senators, okay? And you know what? Just because I like you, I'm going to throw in this QR code that has the senators. Okay, but here's what you say. To the ones who do lobby, you say this. Say, I don't like your lobbying, and I want you to quit. If your representative doesn't lobby, like if you live in Vermont for some reason, say, hey, can you push more for anti-lobbying legislation? I know it sounds difficult, but stuff like this has gotten acts passed before. Trust me, I even signed a few. And it will get more acts passed in the years to come. As long as we band together, we can make it so that the American people are the ones who the government serves. Our children, not the elite. Thank you. Good night, America. This has been your former president, Dwight D. Eisenhower.
That's all, folks.